now that we're covering entries, let's go over the basis for the entry. Always remember, we start off with a $10 or $20 bag. What that simply means is that you're going to make every single trade with the exact amount of $10 or the exact amount of $20. If you lose $1, you add $1. If you make money, you take the profits, put it to the side, and you always use $10 or $20, whatever your bag is. So the first entry is on a 1 hour green moon. The second entry is on the 1 hour green trend, or when the 15-minute RSI bottoms, right? And that's kind of like those are the two options for your second entry, when the 15-minute RSI bottoms or when the 1 hour trend hits. Now, that is the simple part of this trade. It's a 1 hour trade, meaning the first entry is a 1 hour green moon. Second entry is when the 15-minute RSI bottoms all the way to the bottom, or the 1 hour green trend hits, right? Checklist for this. The checklist is just making sure that it's a trade that for a higher percentage, you want the 1 hour RSI going in your direction, or at least sideways in your direction is a lot better. Sideways or moving its way into your direction, that's a little bit too early in a trade, but you can also, if you're catching that, if it's already moving up and going sideways, then you can see it as a consolidation and then moving in your direction, just as long as it's not going against you. Now, they also want your 30 or 15-minute RSIs. The 15-minute RSI, when you make your first entry, can be topped out or pulling down or what have you, because you are going to, get a second entry there. A lot of times you want to catch it when it's moving with you, that and the 30-minute, to make it more powerful. But sometimes you don't have that option. So the key is the 1 hour, the 30 and the 15 RSI. There are bonuses on there. Allows you to, play it safer. So if you do want to wait for the 15-minute RSI to reset, there's nothing wrong with that. And then roll with the 15-minute RSI from that point on. Okay. So that's just an added precaution that you can take. And the more that you go over trades and how that you enter, the more you will see if that affects your trade. So that's kind of where, you want to make your notes of like, okay, I looked at this trade and I got in when the 1 hour moon hit, and I didn't wait for the 15-minute RSI to come down to the bottom and go back up. And this is what happened, right? And if you look at 10 of those trades, if the 15-minute RSI made that much of a difference of safety or not getting what they call liquidated out or hitting your 30 to 40% stop loss, then waiting for the 15-minute RSI is the plan. And the reason why it is different on different coins is because different coins have different values. So once you find a coin or three, four, or five coins that you like to trade all the time, those are the ones you want to stay with and kind of like make your living off of those coins, because once you understand how they move, then you'll find the ones that are safer to trade, that don't move so abruptly, and they don't make such massive moves that they could put you in a position of hitting your stop loss at 50% a lot faster. Right? So that's where letting the 15-minute RSI come all the way down versus getting into it when it's at the top does make a difference in the coin. But the one thing we don't do is we don't go against the 1 hour. So no matter what, the 1 hour RSI has to be in your direction. And we always, when we go to enter, you got to have a 3-minute green moon and a 3-minute green trend for a long, or a 3-minute red moon, 3-minute red trend for a short. But that's the entry list, right? The 3-minute moon and trend have to be the color that you're doing. Red if you're shorting, green if you're longing. That simple. We don't go against the 1 hour, and depending on the coin, you can change your 15-minute RSI stance, whether it works. It doesn't matter if it pulls back, because remember, your second entry is on the 15-minute RSI, pulling all the way back and starting back up. So you do have an entry on that. So this particular coin here is where we're starting, which is XRP. Take a look at your, remember the first entry, 1 hour green moon, 50% of the bag. Second entry, 50% of the bag will go in on the 15-minute RSI bottom, meaning it makes it all the way down, or the 1 hour trend. So let's take a look here at this trade and see how that played out for us. And the last time we had a 1 hour moon, it came on this coin here. So let's go ahead and make our little section here, our box, so we can kind of see where this happens. So we have a 1 hour moon hit here. And the red moon hit here. So in this particular section here, this was our buying zone here. I'm going to make this particular color white because our 1 hours are white. So this is the 1 hour section. Now you have two buy zones, right? As always, the first buy zone, as we mentioned, is going to be on the 1 hour moon, which is right here, 1 hour moon. And then you also have the 1 hour trend. So 50% on the moon, 50% on the trend. And then the other buy-in, depending on what comes first, is the 15-minute RSI bottoms. So if we take a look here, take a look at the 15-minute RSI, we can see from the buy zone that the next buy zone would have actually happened here when the 15-minute RSI pulls down. So you have a nice big pullback here. Right, below the 20 line is considered the low side of it. So as long as it gets below the 20, which it did here, you can consider this a second buy zone. This is the 15-minute RSI below 20 line. That right there could have been an entry there. Or if you waited to bottom out completely, this is where you would be on there. So it's a 15-minute bottoms completely. Now, for me, I'm kind of like the rule of thumb for me is I don't get a second entry unless it improves my first entry. All right, so let's take a look here and I'll show you what I mean, right? So on this particular section here is where we had our 1 hour moon come in, right? So let's open this up a little bit. And if I would have seen this play right here, right, I want to enter when there's a 15-minute moon and a 15-minute trend. So this 1 hour trade here that would have hit in this section here, in this particular area, for me to go ahead is I can't go in on a red moon. So I would have had to wait until there was a 15-minute moon, which happened on this particular candle here. So that's where my first entry would go, is off of this 15-minute moon. Because remember, we don't want to trade against our 15-minute. So here's your 15-minute moon, right? We're good there. Green moon comes in. We're good. 15-minute trend is here, right? To me, that's the trade that we want to do. It's a safe 15-minute moon and a trend, right? So right there, that's where we're gonna come to an entry point at that level. So when you put your entry down, you want to say, hey, I want to at least have a 15-minute moon and trend in my sight, and then from that area there, I want to consider, so take a look at the 3-minute. You'll see that on that particular area we have a 3-minute moon and trend in that section there. Now you can see here we have a 3-minute green moon and a 3-minute green trend. And that happened way down there. So any of these entries, depending on where we got that alert, depending on when we looked at it, if we got to this alert early, we'd be buying in this section here. All right, so if we would have saw the 3-minute moon and trend hit with the 15-minute, and we would have got an alert on our 15-minute trend, right? Because that's what we're waiting on. So anything that you're waiting on, set an alert. We would have got a 15-minute alert somewhere down here, and we could have took this trade a little bit earlier because we have a moon and a trend. So basically here on the 3-minute, we could have took any of these particular candles here for an entry. If you waited for the 15-minute, then you would have been up in this area up here, which is okay. Doesn't really matter. And it creates the momentum that we're looking for. Now, the other thing that we want to look for that's kind of key for us is that volume needs to be above the 0 line, right? So let's go take a look here, and we'll take a look at the 15-minute. And really what I'm looking for here is if this particular trade is actually something that I would look into, because I want to be above the 15-minute positive volume, which would have been here. So you see the difference? Here's some positive. No, I'm just doing a recording right there, brother. So you're good, and I'll show it here for you. So basically, right at this time here, we're going to be going into a scenario where we're waiting for that 15-minute positive volume, which is what we get here, right? So this shows the first level of positive volume. And when that hits, this is where we'd be looking to get into our trade, right? Which also happens to be when the 15-minute trend goes red and then comes back green. It puts us in a situation where it would trigger a buy-in at this level here. Now, this one would actually be our first 1 hour entry, because at that point, we have established positive volume in this section here and moving up in this section here. So we'd be somewhere in this point here with that trend and that positive volume. So that's the first move. Now, always keep in mind when you get your first move, it's always a move to the top and then there's always a pullback, right? So we want to be always aware that there's always going to be a drop in what we have. And this is where understanding if this is our first move, there's a push and there's a pullback, right? And that pullback is normally the area that we basically will find a support zone of the current move. So having a current position, a current move right there, support area right here, lets us allow us to be in a position where we kind of have an understanding of the current support, not the other support, not the older support, but the current move right here. Now this right here would be examples of getting into the buying session, right? So if we buy here, we're jumping a little bit early, but once again, we did have the moon down here. So we did have a moon entry that was literally already down here. So from at this point right here, we already had an entry where we could get in because we had our moon alert here. And then for us, just waiting for the 15-minute RSI to get below where it was, we were here, and then getting our 15-minute trend and the volume above. The volume breaking positive happened here. So all the things were there for us. Once we get that shot to enter here, right, there's always a push, there's always a pullback, and that first push that we buy into, the second pullback is where we need to buy in our second move here, right, which would be in this zone here. So the correct order here would have been buying this 15-minute here. So this would be our first entry. And then the pullback would have been our second entry. Now, take a look at the 15-minute real quick. So you can see here that once we got our first entry here, we would have waited for the 15-minute to get its pullback, which is pretty much right in that same spot there. And then you have your 1 hour trend, which comes here. Now, all them pieces that hit are hitting in the same area, same pullback, same 1 hour trend. So you'd have been in the same buy areas than normal. So first entry, push, pullback, second entry, then basically you're locked in. So you would have been locked in at a 50% stop loss. You're doing a 50x leverage. That would be 1%. So here's your entry right here. That right there would be our original entry, and that would be our stop loss. Our second entry here would allow us to basically would give us a little bit higher stop loss area right there. Now we're locked in at a 50 negative 50 and looking for our movements. Now these bounces that we were getting in here were actually bouncing about 2%. So in reality, if you would have got in on this first trade here, you would have hit 2%, which basically would have meant that you automatically would have hit your 100% gains. And remember, what we're doing here is very simple, right? So this is what you have to remember. So this is the breakdown of, you know, what we're accomplishing here. It's very simple. All right. So what you're doing here is you are making 50%. So the goal, you want to write this down, is make 50% of your bag, right? That's it. It's your entire goal. Every trade. and you are going to win 8 out of 10 trades. So that is your entire goal, and that's what you're going to learn here is how to make 50% of your bag every trade, 8 out of 10 trades. Okay. Now, what that means is, right, that's your goal. What that means is whatever your bag is, we start with 10 bucks a bag, 20 bucks a bag, and you start to move through those bags, you increase your bags based on your wins, right? So if you start off, let's say you have a 8 out of 10 trades, you do your goal, you hit your 50%, right? You go from a $10 bag, and once you hit your goal, 8 out of 10 trades, hitting 50% profits on the bag. You then increase your bag with a double, right? Meaning the bag becomes a $20 bag, or a $20 bag becomes a $40 bag, right? Or a $40 bag becomes an $80 bag, whatever it is. Once you get to $100, you then do increases of $50 every time you win your 8 out of 10 trades. So 100 would then become 150. 150 would then become 200. 200 would then become 250. And you move this along as you continue to hit your 8 out of 10 trades. Now, what you do with your profits is you simply move your profits back over to your spot area, wherever you're trading, but get them out of futures so that you're set up to where you have that money to the side. And the reason why you do that is because if you make a mistake and blow your bag, you want extra money to have available. And sometimes you might get into a trade and there might be another trade that happens, right? And that you can get into, or something pops up. But you want the ability to get into 3 or 4 trades and then let them play their course and move forward. And that's why understanding that you increase your bags with profits versus your money, right? You should never have to go back into your bank, and it should just be building from the bottom up and getting yourself in there. So this is basically a very simple format of getting the entries. A lot of times guys will try to jump this early entry here, which isn't a bad thing if you get a little better in how you trade. Waiting for the safety trade, which is simply everything to line up, puts you in a section where you're a little more safer, right? Getting into this trade here, and then you have possibilities here of growing there, right? The entire goal is just simply be in a situation that you have that allows you to make the trades that you want. So always remember that trades are going to push up and pull back, right? The pullback is where you want to get your trade. So start getting that in your head that you want to enter on pullbacks and the next moves, right? So that way, when something is pumping, you're not jumping in and then getting caught on the pullback and then, putting yourself in a bad position. Just wait for the pullback to come in. And then once that does, that's where you want to look for the entry. And your second entry is on the next pullback. Now, the thing about this trade is if you would have got into this entry here, you would have hit your goal of hitting 2%. 2% on a 50x leverage would have made 100% on half your bag. So let's say that you had a $100 bag, or let's say a $10 bag. Your goal was to make $5, which is 50% of the bag. So your $10, you need to make 50%. Well, this trade here was equal above 2%, which means you would have hit 100% target, which would have been $5. That was a trade that you hit. The second entry that you come in, if you're looking to get in there, would be where the pullback comes in. And then when the pullback comes in, you can see here that there was a red 15-minute trend. So you need to wait for the 15-minute trend to come back in, which is green, which happens here. That would be your second entry because you're in a 15-minute red trend. You would enter here. And this particular trade, once again, gave another 2% push. So you would have made another 100% move without having to do a second entry. And then lo and behold, you end up in a 15-minute red trend. It hits again. You could take another trade at this point and you could have done another 100% entry without ever having to put a second entry into this particular trade. And at that point, you can see that the 1 hour is where you change direction. I'll show you what I mean by that. So here you can see the 1 hour RSI, which is where we do not trade against our 1 hour RSI. And that happens to pop up right here where it crosses over. And we also get a 1 hour red moon. So this particular section here is where you would stop looking for longs and you would start looking for shorts. And that's the importance of understanding that you don't trade against the 1 hour RSI and you don't trade against the 1 hour. As soon as that, and that's how that rolls right there. So don't trade against the RSI. Don't trade against the moon. All right. So in the next video, we're going to cover a little bit more on the next of the entries, and we're going to go from there.